I went through rain, snow, a 2-hour drive basically, to see one of these movies. You're welcome. After over a month of waiting and finding out it's not at my theater, but coming to a different theater that's only a few minutes away from me in my old hometown, I finally got to see Taika Waititi's Jojo Rabbit. Unfortunately, I also learned that it was out of nowhere playing at my current theater yesterday. So I didn't have to go through the snow for any reason. But anywho, the comedy satire has finally arrived, and it is absolutely phenomenal. Easily a great crowd pleaser, if I do say so myself. In fact, I have seen a total of 3 fantastic crowd pleasers back to back to back over the past couple of weeks this November. It's been a phenomenal year for films. But Jojo Rabbit is a wondrous film. The plot basically follows a young boy named Jojo, who is currently in Nazi Germany, whose imaginary friend is Adolf Hitler. However, he finds out that there is a Jewish girl hiding in his, walls, and it slowly turns into him realizing that, Nazis suck.
It's funny because it's true.
I feel like this isn't like an argument, like this is just truth. They suck. And it's a pretty fascinating movie because the first half of the movie is this really lighthearted family almost film. And then the second half just turns into one of the most brutal war movies you'll probably get. And it can only work that way because it feels like an actual real world this movie ends up being. This is probably what Nazi Germany was like to a bunch of kids living there. And it ends up being absolutely phenomenal. The cast is great, the humor is great, it's surprisingly heartfelt and heavily emotional. I found myself crying at a very specific scene in this movie. It's truly one I would highly recommend. It's easily in my top 10, and I'll give it an adore score. So, I only have one big problem with V Ferrari, and it's a very glaring problem as well. It's the pacing. This movie is 2.5 hours long, and let's just say I felt every minute of it while I was sitting in the theater. Just so you know, pacing is not an easy thing for any movie to get right, so I'm not even being bad or mean here. I'm just saying it did a good job at everything else. It was just its pacing's killed a lot of my enjoyment of the movie. But that being said, man, oh man, Ford v Ferrari rules. Every second of this movie rules. The plot of it is basically the iconic Carroll Shelby and his good friend, crap, I forgot his name. I'll just put the name here. Basically, they are hired by Ford to create a fast car to defeat Ferrari in a 24-hour race within the space of 3 months. And here's the thing, this movie is pretty much just a good chunk of it just them having to deal with the corporate stuff and corporate image versus these underdogs. So not only are there underdogs against, this big juggernaut of a racing company, but they're also underdogs against corporate greed, and it ends up turning into this very interesting dynamic for most of the movie. But then it all builds up to a 45-minute long race for the final race of the film, and every minute of it is nuts. This has some of my favorite cinematography of the entire year. The racing scenes are thrilling and exciting, and the cast is phenomenal. I ended up getting to see this at the biggest screen that was at my theater in one of the luxury seats. and it was the time of my life. This was easily the best theater experience of the whole year for me. If you are going to see any movie, I'd highly recommend Ford v Ferrari be one of your choices. It is worth it. And I'll give it a love score out of me.
Need a name.
Falcon! Peanut butter Falcon!
Walk me home in the day.